Hi, everyone. Welcome to a very exciting episode of Electrically Alkaline. And I'm here with my very special guest, Ananda, who is an expert in everything having to do with sovereignty, becoming an American state national, and especially having to do with trust, which is something that I've been so interested in and that I've been diving into. So, Ananda, would you like to share with us a bit about yourself, please?
Sure. Thanks for having me on the show, Juliana. And it's been such a joy to get to know you. And now I'm honored to be on your show and sharing information with your viewers. Um, so, my background is I'm what's called an assistance of counsel, and that was written into the Sixth Amendment. So, everyone has the right to lawful counsel. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a lawyer. However, my dad was. My dad was assistant attorney for the state of Washington. So I grew up in a law household and I learned the art of speaking legalese and translating it into layman's terms, which actually came in really handy in the last few years because I started realizing that folks were being sold something that they were told it was the law. And when we dissected some of the words and some of the verbiage, we realized these laws weren't actually laws. They were codes, rules, ordinances, and bylaws of corporation. And the corporation I speak of is the corporate government, which many of us have thought was our true republic. And it's actually not, it's a whole other entity unto itself. And so, with that, uh, magically, my life unfolded in a way that, with my personal experience and my background in trust, just from my own estate planning within my family, um, I noticed a need for people to understand and grasp the concepts and the application and operation of trust in handling their personal affairs, and especially when coming into being an American state national. So I know you're an American state national, and I'm so excited that you are, I am, and many others, millions actually. So we're growing in numbers and we're reclaiming our republic. But a lot of people are trusting those who've gone before us and saying, okay, we know that something is up with the American state nationals. We know we want to become American state nationals. What they're finding is once they become an American state national, they don't know how to operate in their new suit, if you will. And so operation of trust is essential because now you're operating in the private sector. So when we say in the private, we mean operation of trust and trust law and trust application of law. And so what that is, it's actually the highest jurisdiction. So you've just elevated yourself not only on the record, say with the corporate government, but also in your consciousness. And so it's pretty magnificent in how the spiritual world and the higher law replicates itself in the third dimensional realm. And then we can use practical tools to actually navigate in this new comfort zone.
Law of the land, law
Mhm.
of the air, law of the water, law of the land, and law of the water. They're on the same playing field, but law
Mhm.
of the air is above, which makes it superior in jurisdiction. And that's
Mhm.
where trust law resides. I know it's a phenomenal way to protect your assets. So we're going to get into that right now. And I'm going to go ahead and ask you just some trying to encompass the topic as a whole, but bringing it to those of you who are listening for the first time. So we're not going to get too advanced with the questioning today. We're just really going to keep it so where we can build a solid foundation of knowledge in relation to trust. So question number one is, what are trusts?
What are trusts? I love that. That's a great question. When I think of the first trust, I think of a covenant. A covenant is a sacred vow or a sacred contract, if you will. So there's a saying, it's one of the maxims of equity, equity being synonymous with trust, equity also being synonymous with the word fair. So when you're dealing in a court of equity, you're in theory dealing in a court of fairness. So there's a saying, and it goes like this: everything is trust, and there is nothing that is not trust. And it's neat because you can make that synonymous with God. Everything is God, and there is nothing that is not God. So when I think of that first trust, that first covenant, that's with our Creator. And our Creator granted us dominion over the land, the air, and the water. So you just spoke of the three jurisdictions, and the jurisdictions meaning um, each one has its own rules of operation, if you will. So when you're dealing in the water jurisdiction or Roman law, some people call it civil law or corporate law, and you're going to have all of these references to do with the water. And that, what I find is that there's no solid ground to stand on. It's flimsy, it's ever changing. You can hit choppy waters, right? So
Yeah.
you better have a life preserver if you're out there. So that's corporate law. Then, as we learn, we were out to sea and we come into standing on solid ground. We first need to learn how to crawl and then walk, and we're standing on solid ground. And that's the supreme law of the land. So that's constitutional law, common law, which gives you a little bit more foundation and solid ground. So that's a beautiful thing. And then, of course, the air jurisdiction being above the land and the water is the highest of the jurisdictions. That air jurisdiction is a form. It's actually a law form. So when we say, what law form are you operating in? You would want to know, oh, I'm operating in trust, or I'm operating in admiralty law, right? So that first covenant is when God entrusted us with dominion over the land, the air, and the water. Now, that is a sacred privilege, if you will, a gift that was granted to us by our Creator, this high level of responsibility to be stewards of the land, the air, the water, the creatures, right? And all that is under God. That's up to us. I mean, that's a huge responsibility. That's trust. That's the ultimate trust right there. So when we think of the law form of trust, we think of a covenant, a sacred covenant, but it's a two-way street. God granted us this level of trust, and we in turn, hopefully, will trust God to know how to operate the trust, know who the players are in the trust, and trust that if we don't know the way, that a way will be provided. So trust is esoteric in nature, very difficult to put in a linear, logical sense. Although we can use charts and graphs and little symbols and things to connect the dots and have it make more sense for us. But when you think of trust, I mean, for me, I think of relationship. We build trust, we earn trust. It's not tangible, right? And yet when we put our most valuable items in trust, they're protected because they're protected by God. It's the highest elevated place where we can put our most valuable, precious belongings. And it can be something tangible that you can put in a trust, or something not tangible. So you could put a poem or an idea in a trust.
Oh.
Or you can put a family heirloom. You can put your jewels and gems in your house and your property. So trust is basically a sacred covenant. And some people forget the sacred nature of it. There's many that have used it for nefarious purposes, for tax avoidance and things like that, which isn't necessarily against the law. It's called strategic estate planning. However, trust can be challenged. And so that's something to look out for when you're developing your trust, especially for your family estate and things of this nature.
You can actually put your business into your trust to protect it. And you can
Yes.
operate finances. I mean, it really opens up a whole nother world of how you view these things in which you navigate, and how you can shield them with a lot more lawful protection.
Mhm. It's true. It's true. It's a great way to put your business into trust. We just worked, my team and I'm with Americans in Action.info. We have a stellar team, and we give consulting for folks who want to enter into the private sector and learn how to operate their business from a PMA and different ways involving operation of trust. So a great story is the gentleman who was a chiropractor, and he was being harassed by the board for all sorts of reasons. And he was being fined unlawfully and just basically harassed. I mean, just huge, very successful business. He decided to turn his chiropractic business into a PMA. And now he's basically become untouchable, which is amazing because in his private membership association, he no longer calls himself a chiropractor. He's actually surrendered his license and he's not practicing using the title of doctor. He's a holistic health practitioner, and now he works on Friends. And his friends are the members of his Holistic Health Wellness Center. And so, because it operates from the private, you have to be a member to be able to participate in some of those healing modalities that he shares with his friends. And it's turned into a very successful venture. And he's finally gotten the board of, I mean, you name it, which board has been after him. All of the, just fill in the blank of who you can imagine who would be trying to harass him for fines and whatnot. They just want him to pay into a system that he used to think he had to be a part of. And then we realize now that everything is an offer. And we realize that we can operate as professionals in our areas of expertise, but we don't have to buy into a system that we aren't in agreement with. And honestly, if you look at the operation of trust, and we go back to the original trust for the United States of America, the Constitution. Now, many will argue, oh, it was a charter. Well, what's a charter? A corporation. Well, sure, okay, but let's look deeper. It's actually a trust. And if you look at who are the original grantors of the trust, it's we the people. So that's actually us. We are original grantors of the original trust through, we're the descendants of an embodiment. I am a people. I am one of we the people. So when you go back to original jurisdiction, I am the creator and I get to receive the benefits of. So now who's calling the shots here? Is it we the people, or is it the government laying down the law and saying how it is? So once we come in a beneficiary or even original jurisdiction as grantors, and we set the record straight, we say, hey, actually, here are the facts of the matter, and this is how it's going to go down.
Trust open bank accounts for the trusts as well. So financially, so business, financial, do you want to elaborate on that and perhaps some other ways?
Sure. Yeah. I like the operation of trust when it comes to banking because it gives you more of an authoritative position in your business and how you want your business dealings to go. So because it is private, you're actually having your MSS, which is your merchant service specialist. It's one of your higher ups at the bank. You're going to develop your relationship. That's your trustee relationship that you're developing with your local bank. Now you're going to have to find a bank that's willing to open up a trust account. And some of the trust accounts, now by law, nobody's really allowed to ask you for a social security number, but we often volunteer to give it because we want to have a bank account. We want to have these different things. But in the trust, if you were to set up your trust in such a way where you mixed a little bit, not a lot, you're not mixing jurisdictions per se, but because everything is trust and there's nothing that's not trust. But let's say you open up an LLC and you have an EIN number appointed to your LLC, and then you put that LLC into your trust. You can open up your trust bank account for the operation of the LLC, which is your business, with an EIN number so that it's not associated with you. And that's just one degree of separation. And I've heard of other folks having success by not giving the social security number or an EIN number. However, those tend to happen more in smaller banks, credit unions, and things of this nature. It would depend on the bank and your relationship with your fiduciary trustee, your trustee that you choose to work with. So you need to see how open they are and how flexible. Some are more strict than others. And the way I see it, when operating a trust, if you don't find an opening, go somewhere else. So if you're getting a lot of pushback or people don't really know what you're talking about, go to somebody who does know what you're talking about, because you want somebody with more expertise in this area to be able to assist you. But that operation really can help you to pay the proceeds or to pay the bills that exist in the trust. So in operation of trust, everything that's in your trust. So let's say you're renting a building to, you know, do your manufacturing and you need to pay the rent on that building. That would come out of the bank account for the trust. And trust accounts are very common with brokers. So that would be business brokers or real estate brokers. There's different types of also financial brokers, and they're used to having trust accounts. And whatever's in trust, it would be your client's money. And so you're not allowed to commingle. So you need that very separate and very specific. And you want those checks and balances. So you want your trustee relationship with your bank so that they can go in, oversee, and make sure that all the bills are being paid. There's no illegal spending going on. It's just a lot of checks and balances. And I'm sure, as you know, in trust, we do minutes. So there's recording and you show the activity, hopefully every month, but you can do it every quarter. And if you're lazy on your trust, you can do it once a year and just try to play catch up a little bit. But it's good to stay on it. Monthly balancing of the books is always helpful.
There's one more thing I wanted to add to that in terms of the finances.
Mhm.
Like right now, I think they were saying that like Elon Musk or some famous person that we all know of is like the richest person in the
Mhm.
world, and that's not even close to being true.
Right.
Under my estimation, from what I'm aware, it's the Rothschilds, and apparently they have upwards to $533 trillion. And the reason why nobody knows about it or nobody's reporting on it is because it's all in a trust.
Mhm.
And a lot of these super elite, super wealthy people that we never hear about their money or anything,
Mhm.
they're operating solely in the trust when it comes to this. So it shrouds them with a whole nother level of
Mhm.
invisibility.
Mhm. Yeah, and why is that?
Oh, well, I don't think they want people to know.
Because it's private. It's a private trust
Exactly. Yes,
matter.
yes.
It's nobody's business, you see? So they're
Yeah.
very clever, and yet people get angry and they say, oh, you know, it's all this nefarious, dark, secret meetings. And it's like, well, they have actually the right under operation of trust to keep those meetings private because it's nobody's business. It's sad, you know, when you think about it, Juliana, public law is owned by a private corporation. And I'm
Mm.
going to say that again. Public law is owned by a private corporation. So when we go into a court and we don't know who we are, let's say I don't know I'm the beneficiary of this public charitable trust and I don't know anything about being an American State National. And I just go into one of these courtrooms and I'm trying to stand and say, well, I'm standing upon my rights and the Constitution was there to protect my rights. Now, the reason I would get thrown out or laughed at or possibly thrown in the slammer for contempt of the court is because if I go in there in a private corporation meeting, now remember, public law is owned by a private company. I go in there and I pretend to know what the rule book says. I pretend to know what the accounting is. And I'm saying my constitution and my rights. I'm speaking on matters that I know nothing of. And so when you go in for a hearing, they're hearing to see if you know who you are. And if you start yelling constitution and fraud, that will just bring up the bile in the judge and the clerk of the court. The vomit, they start going, oh, here we go, more of this patriot nonsense. And yet you feel so convicted. I know I'm right, and I know my rights have been squashed, and blah, 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 blah. But because we, the people, many of us don't know who we are yet, we're getting to know who we are because it's the time of revelation. It's the big reveal. Once we realize, okay, I am a child of God, heir to the kingdom of heaven, and that whole world, that corporate world and those corporate laws is the whole world of commerce. That's Babylon. I don't have any business in that world. It really is a private corporate meeting. And I can't go in there to think that I'm going to know how to speak or know what their operation of trust looks like. So I'm better off to go in there and simply say, I don't understand anything that's going on in this courtroom. And remember, your viewers, whenever you hire a lawyer or an attorney, you're literally giving up your rights because the judge will deem you to be incompetent. They see you as one, you can't speak. You are so stupid. You have to hire somebody else to speak
To
on your
speak for
behalf.
you because you're a dead legal entity.
Because you're identifying as the all caps name or your straw man.
Yeah.
But we didn't know what we didn't know, and now we're learning. But the thing about it is when patriots come awake and alive, they get so angry and they want to fight, fight, fight for the rights. And I'm saying, lay down your sword, turn the other cheek. It's none of your business what goes on in that world. When you step in as beneficiary and you start recognizing, hey, I know who I am. And gee, I'm not falling for that crap anymore. So I'm opting out. Thank you anyway. And you do it with honor and grace and decency and forgive them, Father. They know not what they do, right? Or in some cases, we talked about this earlier, forgive them, Father, for they know what they do and they do it anyway. Some of them do know what's up and some of them don't. So you do your best to stay in your lane and be cool and try not to engage because everything is an offer. And when a road pirate or an agent of the state is trying to come out of their lane, come into your lane to harass you, to rock your world, interrupt your peace, it's very hard to not engage. It's like somebody's gone out of their way to pick a fight with you, and you're supposed to just stand there and go, oh, no, forgive them. They know not what they do. It's like, okay, we're going to be very much tested. So just see if you can not engage, recognize that people are at where they're at. An agent of the state is not going to know this information. Most of them won't. And so if you go to stand for your rights on the side of the road, you're going to be seen as a combative type. And it will be so easy to frame you as being that, because if you're arguing with what their point of view is, you are being combative, whether they started it or not, right? Being a good mom, it doesn't matter who started it. You're both guilty because you're participating in it. So in those cases, what I would recommend is simply, be kind, bite it, take your ticket, and then you can handle it later. There's some processes through a process of surrender. There's another process through rescission. You have 72 hours to rescind any and all offers to contract. And just remember that when those lights go on, they've already assumed arrest. So don't fight them. You can only make matters worse, and you don't want to cause trouble for yourself. So handle things administratively. That's what I would recommend. And don't be on the side of the road trying to fight for your rights. It's just going to complicate things and make a big mess for the movement, the sovereignty movement. There's nothing that's bulletproof. So in theory,
Nice.
right, we get a allodial title, land patent, and we own our property outright. We're American state nationals. We don't fall under a jurisdiction of statutory codes and rules and laws. However, when that bill comes and you're not paying it, you're probably going to get challenged. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. So might as well set yourself up to have your land in trust. And it's just one more degree of separation. My best friend has his property in trust. He lent his car to a woman who crashed it. I mean, horrible. She almost killed somebody. Like, it was a mess, right? So the insurance went after her insurance company, went after his insurance company, and then he gets a call from a lawyer that says, hey, even though both the insurance companies have paid out max, there's so many damages with this woman that she hit that they're going to do a deep dive. They're going to try to come after you and go after your assets. He's like, oh my God. Well, guess what? He had his property in his home in trust. He didn't have a allodial title. He didn't have his land patent, but it was in trust. And when they went to go find any assets, he didn't have any because he had put them in trust. So there was no name connected to his land and property, and he was literally protected. Thank God, because they could have nailed him, and he didn't have anything to do with the accident, but he was
And
underinsured.
that's right. And a lot of these very wealthy people, it's like
Mhm.
they don't own anything, like really nothing is under their name. And so
Yeah.
if people try to come after them, it's a way to protect their assets. And I did have a question for you. So if you were to come in about a matter, let's say about a property and your property's in the trust,
Mhm.
if it so it's an express trust and you're at the court, that the judge doesn't even have the ability to see what's inside of it so long as it's an express trust, and of course not an implied trust. Is that correct?
This is true. And be careful when you create your trust, because if you create your trust to be statutory compliant for the state laws, rules, codes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I create a trust and I make it a statutory compliant trust because I'm trying to be honoring of the laws of the state I live in. It doesn't even make sense to do such a thing. And the reason is because trust is a higher jurisdiction than the state laws, rules, and codes. So why would the state have any business? That's kind of like us going into their private corporate meeting and claiming to know the rule book. So in essence, the state shouldn't have any ability to look at your trust. It's a private trust matter after all. Anything in trust is private. If you choose to share it, they could ask to see it. And in cases like where the IRS is questioning if your trust is legit or if you're using it to, launder money, um, you shouldn't have to prove your trust because it's a private trust, period. But many people make the mistake, and it's said that they're double minded when they do this. They create their trust to be statutory compliant. Now, if it gets questioned by the state, the IRS, or whoever, now you might have to show the books, or you feel like you have to show the books. And
Yeah.
I would say it would depend on how the trust was written
Yeah.
and how much you've developed your standing. And if you're going to be able to go and say, well, that's nobody's business because I'm an American state national and my trust is my business, my private family business.
What types of trust are there?
Well, there's many types of trusts, but the two that I like to focus on and that everyone should know about is irrevocable and revocable.
Mm.
And the only kind of trust I would ever get involved in is an irrevocable trust, because a revocable trust, you can basically uncreate it. And if you're going to create something in trust, you're entering into the world of the living. Now, if you can demolish it, then you can go into the world of the dead. So I like to stay in the land of the living, or the living trust, the irrevocable trust. You can make changes to it as you go.
Mm.
You can appoint different trustees. You can restructure the trust. You can collapse it and rebuild it. But I like to keep it all in the land of the living because I just don't really see the point of the other. If you can create it and then destroy it, what was the point of it at all in the first place?
Mm. Speaking
So,
about trust of the living,
mhm.
I believe this is where some would call a pure trust or a God trust. And I've heard that this trust, it doesn't require an EIN number, but it seems a bit more occult. Could you elaborate more on this type of trust?
It is a cult because I can create it in my backyard and I can put in it whatever I want. I don't have to record it on a public record.
Mhm.
I can share the information or not. And I mean, it seems so elementary. Like I could be a kindergartner and open up a notebook and put some drawings in it, and that can be my trust. And we can do that as adults. And I think it's just the concept of having a trust. and knowing that your most precious, most valuable items are placed in it. And it elevates your consciousness. It elevates you from a pauper, somebody who doesn't have any standing or status, and it elevates you into that higher child of God, heir to the kingdom of heaven.
The one last trust that I wanted to talk about, because I remember seeing it on the IRS forms, it's called a foreign trust. And if I thought about it, and if I'm not mistaken, being an American state national, you are foreign to the US corporation. You're part of the United States of America, not the United States federal corporation. So would that make your trust foreign in nature?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, that's a really good insight. I'm glad that you caught that. And it's actually we who declare them to be foreign, but in their world and their language, they see us as
declare
foreign.
us as foreign, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Okay.
that's part of their magic. They try to get us to, they project, accuse others of that which you're doing, and accusing us of being foreigners. It's actually them who are foreigners.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was very observant of you, and I love that you caught that.
Oh, thank you.
Hmm. And as a safeguard, it's good to be an American state national because now you have it on the record that you're a private man or woman, and you're in the land of the living, the spirit-filled woman, spirit-filled man, who has nothing to do with these corpse orations. Because equity meaning fair, but it can also mean value. So it's, you put your valuables, it's a holding trust. That's where you put your valuables. I'd put my car in there.
Nice.
Anything you own outright, equity holding.
Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to share with us about the trusts?
Yes, put your valuables in trust, put your land in trust, put your property in trust. Guess what is your property? Your labor.
Mm,
Guess what is your property? Your body, right? So, for your viewers who haven't looked into the repudiation process yet, it's a fabulous experience to be able to reclaim that which you already are, but you're claiming it on the record. And if you have a basic knowledge of trust, I mean, even just this video alone can equip you with so many insights that when you look into the repudiation process, you'll start recognizing the operation of trust in the paperwork, and you'll start seeing it everywhere. You'll start recognizing, wow, everything really is trust, and there's nothing that is not trust. And so develop your understanding of what it is and put everything that's valuable to you in trust, because that's what the Richie Riches of the world have done to protect their families and their assets. And that's what we can do. And I think that what was intended for us, but in the world as it has been, we've been asleep at the wheel in survival mode, many of us, and for a long time. And now we're waking up and we're getting back to this higher level of responsibility, which has to, everything has to do with trust. And then also going back to, if you open your Bibles and you read the first 5 books of Moses as a trust indenture, it shows you who the trustees are, it shows you the operation of trust, who the players are, who the beneficiaries are. And it also shows in code what are laws and rules of operation in the physical realm were intended to be. And if you just kind of look at it with new eyes, you might have fun with it because it's not so literal. And I used to read the Bible very literally and I wasn't grasping it. And now if you read it in code, you recognize, oh, this is the operation of the trust. Oh, what am I supposed to do? Okay, well, I'm supposed to be responsible. I'm supposed to know the law. I'm supposed to uphold it. I'm supposed to hold my trustee accountable. I'm supposed to protect and defend the trust. and look out for my fellow man and be a good overseer. And I love what one of our team members, what he says. He says, when you're the trustee is when you're sowing and tilling the soil. And
Hmm,
when you're the beneficiary is when you're eating the fruit.
I love
So that way
that.
you know what hat to wear at what time. So
I love that. And there's no mistake that there's a Bible in every courtroom.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's the foundation. Like it really is, I see in so many ways being the foundation for law, and it's all in there. And I want to go back to what you said. So you had mentioned, I just want to establish the main positions that play out in a trust. So you have your trustees, which, if I'm not mistaken, are the fiduciary of the trust. So they have the utmost responsibility and duty to the trust. The beneficiaries that are the ones that benefit from the trust. And is there another position in the trust?
Yeah, it's the grantor, some call the settlor. The grantor is the creator,
Oh,
that which creates controls. So the grantor can be a silent creator, and there does not need to be disclosure. So let's say I grow up and grandpa left me a house and a big treasure chest filled with gold, and I don't know it, but in my 20s, all of a sudden I get a knock at the door that I'm the beneficiary of this house, property, and treasure chest. And guess what? Yay. The fun part about being a beneficiary is you don't have to know a darn thing. You just simply get to receive the benefits of the trust. In fact, you're better off not knowing anything. And to go in and claim to be trustee when you're not could be a breach of trust. If you're going to guess which position you hold in a trust, always guess the beneficiary. Because if you're wrong, probably won't be in too big a trouble. Okay. But if you claim to be a trustee and you are not, you can get in major trouble. That's a breach of trust. So know who you are in the operation of trust. And as beneficiary, you get to enjoy the benefits, and you're better off not knowing a darn thing. You don't know any of the accounting on the books. You don't know who created the trust. Maybe you might get to find out, but you're not there to demand anything. You're there to compel the trustee to do what they're obligated to do. And that fiduciary relationship, that is the highest level of trust, if you will, to use the same word to describe the same thing. But it's just that highest level of responsibility. And it's a lot of work being a trustee. So if you are entrusted to be a trustee, take that position very seriously. Record your minutes, do your books, dot your I's, cross your T's, and have some checks and balances, uh, just so that you make sure that you're squeaky clean on your side. You don't want that to come back to bite you later.
nice. So, Ananda, you have a wonderful, very simple to the point book that I would love for you to share with the viewers. It's more so terms and definitions of words that are constantly used to trip us up into contracting. Can you share with us where people can find this and tell us about it?
Sure. The book is called The Dictionary That Can Save Your Life. And if you're in trouble, you can just hit somebody over the head with it, and that should help. No, just kidding. No, it's pretty lightweight. It's very thin. And the reason why this book was created was because most people don't have time to read Black's Law 4 and Black's Law 6 and Bouvier's dictionary. And people get really bogged down and overwhelmed in the chaotic, endless sea of legalese. And the book was created to condense down the most important words so that you don't accidentally incriminate yourself by using the wrong law words. I am not a corporation. I'm not a legal fiction. I am a people or a spirit filled woman. So little things like that are big things, especially when it comes to the law. And it's called The Dictionary That Can Save Your Life. And you can get it on americansinaction.info, and you can purchase it there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ananda, for being on the channel today and for sharing your presence with all of us. I look forward to our journey, all of my subscribers and all of those that are new to this journey. it is so important that we learn this knowledge, because knowledge is power, and it's been a personal example that I've been living in my life. The more that I learn and I evolve, the less that I am being taken advantage of. You're just in a much stronger stance and able to navigate your dealings in the future, from finances to business to your assets to all of it. It's all encompassing. And so continue on your journey to learn, and just one step at a time every day, it will get better and better. I promise you. I'm sending you all so much love and light. And until the next video.